Chapter 14 The Magi. After the fire, so much had changed, and it felt as if my inner reality had been rearranged, but not without its fair share of pain. Some call this inner heat tapasya, which means to burn. And so this sacrificial offering unites us with a higher consciousness. As I re-entered the city, after the fire burnt away what was no longer needed, all sorts of auspicious events arose spontaneously, and rather abruptly, I crossed paths with a man in an orange robe who was called a Swami. A harsh reality is always better than a pleasant illusion. He paused and rubbed his two fingers together. If you prefer a pleasant illusion, it will lead to harsh suffering. But when we enter into such a divine fire and treat it as our life's offering, such a harsh experience will lead us to a pure reality. The Swami required nothing from me, but rather he was in service to guide others deeper upon the path. And as I gazed into his eyes, I was barely aware of how much intense fire his journey required that he too surpass. It is purification by fire, and most who touch it run to substance, alcohol, vacations, drugs, sex, or anything else that will distract them with a pleasant illusion. If you can endure the harsh reality, soon you will find that you yourself are the exact fire of purification. As we sit with the fire, we become it. This is the path of fruition, said the Swami. He was gone after that, while the idea of a spiritual Swami seemed foreign to me, and since I'd never had formal training to learn about such masters, I sought an explanation from Shruti.
Since you come from a biblical background, we will call him a Magi. When it comes to the Magi, there are many types, and they exist on a spectrum, but in almost all cases, the Magi have been purified by the fire. Some Magi appear to remain high, while other Magi are free. Some Magi can perform great miracles, read minds, or teach profound wisdom, but there are also Magi who become like devils and demons. Magi exist on a spectrum, much like visible and invisible light. So if we were to categorize them, we could begin with 4 key types. One type of Magi could be visionary. The opposite type of Magi could be lost in a delusion. A third type of Magi offers up their life in a sort of sacrifice in service of all others. And the fourth type could be called the auspicious or mysterious. A Magi's presence could feel light, or a Magi could feel dark. While Magi come in all rays, not all Magi are pure in heart. When one endures the inner fire of transformation, it can also lead a person to live with anger and chaos, and rather than assist the eternal flame of our spirit, they may live selfishly and betray the true nature within us. Those on the path to becoming Magi are involved in a transformation, which starts from a single moment that first breaks the heart open. Some will never become Magi because they cannot heal from their experiences. There are those that begin to fortify their own personal ego as they believe they are granted all of God's power. But if this happens with their ego, it will only lead to their downfall. The goal of all Magi is freedom, and they blaze a path while they hold up the light to lead us out of suffering. Such transformation is a choice, and one could label it as fruition, while others call it liberation,
said Shruti. And have you ever wondered if our world in confusion could be some sort of illusion? What if all that is needed is a bit of the imagination?
Some believe there is an imaginary Magi nation. They say Magi exist with a foot in this world and a foot in the realm of spirit. How else could that Swami find us? They say that the Magi who have found fruition dwell in the spirit upon a secret hill, a mystical field, or a great mountain. Some call this heaven, nirvana, North Kuru, or Shambhala Kingdom. Aren't you curious about these great beings and what they can do? No need to look far. I will surprise you, because now that you have sat in the fire, the Magi will spontaneously appear to guide you,
said Shruti. How will I know who's a Magi?
You won't quite know if you meet a Magi, but then again, we never expected to find one walk across this town. The greatest Magi do not attract masses or followers, but rather they blend in among the poorest to remain discreet on all accounts. A great Magi has no interest in money or even purity, because the Magi who has reached 100% of the goal knows that the divine does everything perfectly. In some ways, it could be said like this, that when a person enters onto the spiritual path, the first 10 and 20% of the trek feels joyful, energized, and inspired. But after 20%, the only way forward is to go through tapasya, which means burning with the transformative fire. The further you go, the more intense it gets. And right before you reach about 80% of the journey, the soul will reach the absolute breaking point, where even the greatest masters must face a desire to quit. Once you surpass the 80%, you become a remover of darkness. The last portion of the journey becomes blissful because your identity is paired with the fire. You identify with the light that is within all of us,
said Shruti. Can you explain more of this process?
Within us all, we have layers by which we are covered. And so it begins with the body, the breath, the mind, our awareness, and the innermost center, which is the spiritual fire. The first 20% of the journey is a path roughly associated with the body, breath, and mind. It feels very uplifting because we start to feel and see that our physical layer is making some sort of progress. We may appear stronger, faster, and more disciplined because we control the mind, where we see physical changes through this process. This brings a sort of inner confidence and inspiration because we see we are growing. But eventually, we have no choice but to transform through our inner world, and this must be done by entering the sacred fire. As soon as we enter the inner fire, our outward reality begins to shift. Rather than becoming easy and joyful, our path becomes a transformation beyond the mind into our awareness. As you elevate out of the mental sphere, the mind tends to get emotional, as it has quite a lot to say about this. This is a critical point because the mind will get wild, and it will even fight back. If we're not careful, this process will drive the mind into madness, where it could direct our body to become aggressive and attack. You see, our ego wants to identify with the body and mind, because the mind has control over the body. But upon this path, we are transcending our previous version of reality, and this has been constructed by our previous views, which are based on limited or lower knowledge. This heating process could be thought of as adding gold into fire, and so heat removes impurities. And once we reach about 80% of the path, we come to the point where we first see the light at the end of the tunnel. From here, we are not limited or confined by our thinking mind, but rather, we understand what we are in our core awareness, and this awareness brings us to the final steps to recognize how we are the light of divine consciousness,
said Shruti. How do you know who the highest Magi are?
High may not be the right word, but rather, the ultimate Magi are expressions of pure divinity. They have no use for fame, status, or achievements because they are not separate from all of infinity. Such Magi have been said to disappear in an instant, or they can reappear any given moment. They could linger around for years, but they could also transcend time with their imaginations as they are connected into various dimensions of higher consciousness,
said Shruti. Now my mind tried to make sense of this, but since it couldn't, I went on to play the Shruti box and unite with her great vibration.
They say that even though some Magi are outside of time, they come here to visit time too. And even if someone told you they were a Magi, it would likely be a lie, because a true Magi would never reveal oneself through their egos to you. But at the same time, every so often, once in a blue moon, a Magi may visit, and if you're ready, they'll open a hidden door or a portal for you,
said Shruti. Strange enough, we found ourselves in front of a great door as I played the Shruti box loud. The wooden instrument sang to the moonlight as it resonated to a few in the crowd. Her lung would breathe and we would fall in tune while she whispered about a Magi with blue skin. Shruti said that Magi come in different styles and shapes, and sometimes they are unseen. Magi may visit in your dreams, and they may even be quite direct. Know that Magi cannot be limited by words. But if such Magi are real, then why don't the Magi have authority over the world's production of spiritual humans? I just don't understand. If the Magi are such great beings, then why is the world in such pain?
Because every so often, someone who begins on the path as a Magi cannot bear the fire, and instead of moving into fruition, they veer from the path where they seek selfish pleasure, wealth, and fame. Such a Magi becomes like a demon, and if they become powerful enough, they can deceive the whole world and lead the people astray,
said Shruti. The deceiver. Now that the deep state is gone, will he come to power and take the world over?
Long ago, the deceiver met a Magi, but since he couldn't endure the fire, he broke his spiritual connection, and now he seeks dominion over the world. But fear not, there are still good and noble Magi on the other hand, and so we can trust that the divine is taking care of everything as it leads the pure in heart along the path to fruition,
said Shruti. But at this point, it feels like we'll need a miracle. Shruti smiled and winked.
Just when it seems most improbable and impossible, the divine will provide everything. It's all perfect. Just wait and see.
She seemed adamant that the powers of the pure Magi would emerge and lead us to fruition. Surely those pure in heart were connected into a real solution. But how could they stop the deceiver who distracts the population as he generates more confusion? Shruti said this was a process of surrendering. It was not about ego's ambition, as she explained that the great work of a real magician is fruition. The Shruti box resonated beside the great door while some wealthy material men and women passed by, and I wondered if others even tried to pose as Magi. Oh, go on and try. Why, they dressed up in such nice clothes, but they forgot how Shruti looked out from everyone's eyes. The box would hum as the great vibration sung, and Shruti said she would reveal when a pure Magi came to visit. She said that if a Magi appears, it would be rather urgent, and typically they arise to deliver a message of supreme importance. Why, from Shruti's vibration, she herself seemed to open my hidden potential and merged through my imagination, which crafted many bizarre questions. And so I wondered, who were the Magi really? What did Magi have control over? What ability do they have that allows them to move through time and spaces of reality? Did they know the blue being Shruti spoke of? And did the Magi drink from a spring which held the nectar of immortality? Shruti whispered how Magi understood that resistance to life creates suffering. Yet through such a process, we learn to carry great wisdom. For only in such mud can a flower find the nutrients to give birth to a great lotus. For it is through the fire of purification where we transform out of ignorance and wickedness. Oh, I'm sure the Magi were smart enough to realize that nothing on the earth was permanent, and maybe that's why it's rare they visit. If Magi like us lived for too long, then wouldn't they get trapped in the worldly stuff? I suppose a Magi wouldn't care for attention, speculation, fame, or gossip. Oh, I'll continue to wonder about the Magi nation. And I'm interested if this is how all Magi start their path. Was it something in their imagination that first made them curious? Some men and women make a show of life and try to seduce you into following them. But Magi live not for themselves, since they are connected into distant spiritual dimensions. If only I could meet all of them, but at least today they still visit. Those great beings come and go as they please, and I will look for them in the places we worship. These Magi seem to want nothing from you or I, as it matters not the amount of followers. After all, it seems the pure Magi are in service of the entire world. Then upon a day, after time had come to pass, as I played the harmony from the Shruti box, I felt especially connected when even words fell short. Sound itself carried the perfect harmony when birds flew forth. The moment became a divine instruction when a great surge of awareness from within caught sight of an old man who tended to a fire pit. Nearby us was a great door when his eye opened as he turned his head to signal for our awareness. "What is it?" I whispered. "Arise, awake, stop not until the goal is reached," said the old man as the flame flickered on repeat. In shock of his words, I heard his mantra verse. A moment later, he stood up with a flame alive in his hand as he pressed it into the keyhole, which opened the great door to expose a secret portal into the infinite universe. How did he know? And it's quite impossible to describe a miracle. But behold, a Magi came forth before our eyes, and of course, the pure Magi are the most humble. It didn't take long until I caught on to what he was doing. Magi like him spoke in riddles, otherwise they could teach best in silence. His explanations came without words, when I realized many Magi speak to others in total silence. For within us all lives a divine witness who sees everything and is always aware of the present moment. And so whatever we tune into is the reality we create from this consciousness. Such Magi are absorbed into the state of the innermost fire of awareness. Of course, this Magi was aware of his body, but he was not attached to it, nor did he cling to the mind. He was so kind when I realized that he knew the pathway home to the divine. "Who are you?" I asked him. "I can only tell you how I found the way, but maybe words will not allow you to hear it. I pray to God that I may be of service. And so, when it comes to my journey, I prayed to be possessed by the fire of our spirit," said the Magi. Inside the door held a secret meeting place for the Magi. and it could have led through an imaginary presence into deep and pure awareness. Beyond this door, there was nothing that could harm us, for it appeared as a boundless universe, and so I was ready to walk through it. In the imagination, everything is happening. It is one way of many to discover the pathway out of suffering, and the Magi abide by one secret revelation, said the Magi. What is it? Our imagination is shared freely with everyone and everything. Since it is limitless, it is the way we can receive the gifts from the universe, said the Magi. What should I make of this? I pointed at the door, which emanated vibrations of serenity. Oh, the universe was like a divine lotus that came forth to bloom for all of eternity. It sounds like you are curious about the nature of time and change, said the Magi. Yes, why are we bound by time? And where do the Magi travel? Is there something secret to find? Go on and enter. You'll never be the same once you take a step inside, he said. Without hesitation, Nandi, Shruti, Kundalini, and I took our step inside. A great flash covered our awareness when pure light came forth from all sides. So bright, and why the next time I opened my eyes, I found a mystical cornfield I once recognized. There were people seated here, and in the center was that great spiritual rock, while everyone sat in harmony with nature. Why, I didn't realize it when I first came here, but this cornfield was a safe haven for the Magi. And so I wondered if the mystical cornfield was a portal into our true nature. And is that why aliens draw patterns in crop circles? Silence was the only answer, for this was the meeting of the mind, the body, the heart, and the souls from beyond. These beings had gone through a great transformation of consciousness, but somehow, here in the cornfield, we spoke without words, through pure silence. Was this the doorway into or out of the active imagination? Patient, waiting, silent contemplation. The nation of the Magi rarely spoke through verbal intellect, but rather each had a type of telepathic communication. This moment was the very instruction, and within it there was something for everyone to catch on to. A Magi could open oneself up at any given moment, as it was a direct experience. Then from the intuition, we could find the instruction, which was silently transmitted. In some cases, the Magi would disappear. I'd blink and realize that no one else was here. Many spiritual beings came and went, and they all showed reverence to the giant spiritual rock in the very center. Then after another moment, a Magi's robe brushed over my shoulder, as I took this as a sign of grace, which was exchanged. The Magi went on his way back to the city, while I noticed that he did not resist any change. This being was open to the infinite and was guided by the very source of creation. Light does not ask for permission to shine, but rather it shines forth, and this light is in service of the greater purpose, and so it needed no recognition in return. After that Magi left, I would find his face in the clouds, as if he would peek down at me and smile with a great radiance. Was this the connection to infinite magic? Why, Shruti, Nandi, Kundalini, and I were open to all of it. So what do you call such a strange moment that spontaneously arises every instant?
Auspicious,
said Shruti. Yes, these Magi were auspicious, and somehow they knew how to send signs and just when to appear. I wondered if they could change form or manipulate the quantum levels of reality to assist their peers. Their path was often silent, and their power would ripple out like a great mandala. They would find ways to weave humor into life so we could all laugh at life as if it was a great drama. The nature of their existence was beyond this world, not tricked by the material temptation of it, but rather they emitted pure loving awareness. The greatest Magi seemed to give away all they had, and so they didn't hoard or consume more material stuff. They would offer subtle teachings in an attempt to awaken the demon heads, and that way, others could transcend suffering and find a path into fruition out of the worldly illusion. That's the real idea of freedom. There is a divine reality outside of time that may or may not be connected through a door called the imagination. As I sat in the mystical cornfield, another unknown Magi came near when she handed me a book. Then she sat beside me and spoke.
Arise, awake, stop not until the goal is reached. It is time to fulfill your calling, and so a period of healing is here. Now will you bring it to fruition?
Said the feminine Magi. Her gentle face radiated compassion as she motioned for us to take a look at the book. Nothing was written inside, but these blank pages held a radiance, and I was hooked. In her eyes there was a great light, covered by an outward disguise. For this Magi held such power in her pupils that I heard a silent transmission. Fruition. You speak of fruition, and if you are a great Magi, then I am listening.
Go on and scribe something you feel is enlightening, for this notebook is connected to divinity, and so the divine will hear whatever you are writing. Do not think there are any rules, so write whatever you want, just as long as you don't hurt anybody,
said the Magi. How does this work?
Such a question is tragic. No one can teach or define infinite magic, but rather, we uncover it,
said the Magi. Do you have any ideas of what we should write in this?
As a scribe, whatever you write will come to fruition. But remember, whatever you write will take you upon a journey through your own imagination,
said the magician. The book's cover held many gold circles, which led to a center. The cover was so mysterious, but inside it held pure pages with blankness. I wondered how imaginative ideas could be a portal into or outside of our known existence. Is she saying that anything can happen according to whatever I write in this?
Why not start by writing one true sentence?
The Magi winked, but after I blinked, she disappeared from our vision. Oh, for so long, I felt pinned in the fire of purification. And so I opened the book to the first blank page when I told the truth, as I imagined a very cool and refreshing situation. I wrote, once upon a time, when it was raining. Then a moment later it happened. The first raindrop fell upon my nose as my awareness and eyesight were wide open. I could hear the Magi whisper from above and beyond.
Whatever you write comes to fruition.